Hey everybody, and welcome to another screencast. Today we're going to change gears a bit because I was asking people on Twitter what they would like me to do if they wanted me to keep doing Tailwind and Vue screencasts, or whether they wanted me to switch and do something else. Quite a lot of people had been asking me for Laravel stuff, and they'd been asking me questions about Laravel. And so I did a poll, and it turned out that most people wanted Laravel and Vue. So today what we're going to do is just change gears a bit, and I'm going to switch over and move away from the Tailwind side of things and move to more of this Laravel and Vue side of things. So we're going to cover the back end and the front end in probably this whatever the next videos are. And yeah, we're going to do some Laravel. That means that we're going to do some of the back end PHP stuff. And we'll keep doing Vue though as well. We'll stick with the Vue theme, and we will use Tailwind for the kind of front end styling as well if we get into that. But the focus is going to be more on Laravel and Vue and how we build things that work nicely together. So, so to get started, I would definitely recommend this new framework if you're working with Laravel and Vue. The way I would build Laravel applications that use Vue these days is using the Inertia Framework. So this is a reasonably new framework. I think it's only been around for a couple of years, and it's great. I've been using it for a few years previously to Lemon Squeezy, and Lemon Squeezy is fully built using this framework. So it's solid. It's a proper production-ready framework. And the idea with Inertia is that you can build single-page apps. So modern single-page apps are kind of JavaScript only. You don't have any kind of server-side rendering or anything like that. You just use an API. Your backend is just purely an API, and all of the logic and display and views and everything are all on the front end. And React and Vue are obviously, and Svelte are all popular frameworks for using this kind of tech stack where it's very front-end heavy. And these are called single page applications because what happens is when you make your initial request to the server, you get one response from the server, and then after that, everything else is just AJAX calls to the backend, to the API to get any data that you need. So there's just that single page that loads it first, and then after that, everything else is AJAX. So this Inertia is kind of it's a genius framework in many ways, because what it does is it gives you all the best bits of single page applications without all of the kind of downsides. So when you build SPAs normally, you need to have an API, but then you also need to handle things like routing and authentication, validation, all the kind of more complicated fiddly bits of integrating a kind of front-end SPA with a back end. And what Inertia does is it really simplifies that by basically coupling them slightly tighter, so that you're still using the back end and Laravel. I say Laravel, Inertia can be used in any framework. It can be used in different languages as well, but it's primarily the kind of the demonstrations that they use are in Laravel. And the way it works is that you use Laravel as if you were using it as a kind of typical Laravel application with server-side rendering and blade views. You would normally render your blade view to the client, and then say they filled in a form and hit submit, it would go back to the server and then return a rendered view. And so you can still use Laravel in that way, and interact with it as if it's that kind of classic style server-side application with routing and controllers and all, and validation, authentication, handles all these things. And it still works like that, but the front end shifts away completely from the blade and the static server-side rendered views, and it moves all the way to these popular front-end frameworks that people use like React and Vue. So it's like the best of both worlds. You still get the back end niceties of Laravel, but you get the front end, the modern front end frameworks that you can use. And so you can see here there's a quick demonstration of how this works. You render an Inertia view in Laravel in your back end just like you would render a blade view, and you pass data to it and all the rest of it. But instead of using a blade view, you use a view component, and your data is passed in as a prop, and you can just use it like any other front-end framework. You can use it like you would if you were building an SPA. So that's a kind of a quick description of Inertia, and I would definitely recommend Inertia if you're thinking of building a Vue application on Laravel. If you're using Vue with Laravel, this is definitely the way to go. And just to go a wee bit deeper on how this works, this how it works page just explains a few of the things that I've just said, but it just kind of explains about the difference between the blade templates and the front end stuff. But if we go to the protocol, you can kind of see actually a kind of breakdown of what happens here. So like most single page applications, when you make your first request, some HTML is returned, and this might look familiar to it. So it's like your normal blade layout and views. It contains your head tags and your JavaScript and CSS. But instead of returning page content, all it does is it returns a single div, and it has this data page attribute. And this page has all the data that is required for Vue to boot up and create the component view, like to use a component. So you can see in this example here, that specifies an event component, it specifies the props to pass in, and it's got all this data in here that you would use or that you need for your Vue to boot up an app, basically. And then every subsequent request to your Laravel application is then done in Ajax. So like a normal SPA, all the subsequent requests after the first one are done using Ajax. And so what happens is, instead of returning HTML, you return this JSON body of data. And this, again, same thing, it specifies the component you need to use, the props and all the rest of it. And what Inertia does is Inertia handles hydrating all the Vue stuff with the response from the server, so that it updates all your Vue components automatically, so that you don't need to worry about doing Ajax calls manually or any of that kind of thing. You don't need to worry about how all this data syncs up. You just return your response like you would a blade view on the back end, and Inertia converts it to JSON and then uses it in the front end to populate your Vue components. And so yeah, that's how it works. Is this top level page object that contains everything that we need, so a component and props, and that's probably about enough of a kind of description about how this all works. So we're going to go ahead and basically just set this up, and we'll set up a new Laravel application. We'll install Inertia, and we can see if we can get something running. So we'll just going to follow the server side and the client side setup guides here. As I said earlier, you can actually use Inertia. It's kind of framework agnostic, so you can actually use it with different frameworks and different languages, but we're going to use the Laravel package. So first things first, actually, we need to actually create a new Laravel application. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that using the Laravel installer. I'm just going to create a new project called Inertia and give it a second to download and install. There we go, that's installed, and then I'm just going to cd into it and open it in VS Code. So here we have a blank Laravel application, and I should actually be able to run PHP artisan serve, and we should be able to see that it's up and running at this local URL, which it is. That's great. So this is just a default Laravel install. I've not changed a single thing here. But what we're going to do is I'm going to come out of that, and we're going to install the server-side package for Inertia. So I'm just going to run composer require for this. That's fine. And then it says there's this root template that we need to set up. So it says by default the Laravel adapter uses the app blade view. So if we go into our blade views, we don't actually have one here, so we'll need to create one. So we'll create an app.blade, I can't spell blade.php, and then I'm just going to literally copy and paste this template into it. So there's a couple of things you'll see here. I'll get rid of that. We're including our CSS and JavaScript, which we haven't set up yet, but we will in a minute. And this Inertia tag, that's literally all it needs to function, is this Inertia blade tag to output that data on the initial request. And so that's fine. And then it says the next thing we need to do is install some Inertia middleware. Now this is important because this is what handles converting the Inertia responses to JSON or HTML, depending on which kind of request it's responding to. So I'm just going to copy and paste this as well and publish the middleware. And if I open this now, what we can see here is that this contains a bunch of different things. The root view is that app .blade file that we've just created. It needs a version, and we don't really need to worry too much about that. And it also has this shared data or the share method where it can output data. And what happens here is if you want to output data on every request, like if there's some like global data that you want to output in every request, you can actually share it here. So this can be useful for things like sharing the logged in user, or I don't know, the current team or something like that. But we're just going to leave that for just now. But we do actually need to register this new middleware in the kernel, and I'm just going to copy and paste this literally from here, and it says put it at the bottom of the web middleware group. There we go. So that's fine, and then so that's it for the server side setup really. There's not really much else to it than that. So we need a controller, and we need to return a response. So I guess what we can do is, I'm just going to open up the web roots file, and instead of creating a controller, actually I'm just going to literally return an Inertia response in here, and that'll give us an idea of what we're doing. We can copy this Inertia class here. Now we don't have an event, so we don't have any data to pass in at the moment, so we'll just take this out. And we also don't have this page. So before I go any further, let's actually set up the client-side stuff and create the Vue page, because remember, this is going to be a Vue component. This isn't a Blade template or anything. It's a Vue component that we're going to return here. So let me head back up and go to the client-side installation. Now there's a choice here. Again, Inertia is framework agnostic, so you can actually use it in all these frameworks. But I'm going to just use Vue 2, and there's maybe an argument that we should be using Vue 3, but to be honest, I've not done loads of Vue 3 yet, and I still feel very comfortable with Vue 2. And Vue 2 is going to be supported long term anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and use Vue 2 for the purpose of this screencast and these videos. So let's go ahead and add these packages like it tells us to. Now, if I open up my package.json, we should see here that what's happened is that Inertia and Inertia Vue have been added as dependencies. And then what we need to do is, in fact, just before I go any further, I'm just going to check that my Laravel mix, we're going to use Laravel mix to compile all of these, and so I'm just double checking where it does. Yeah, so it's got our app.js and app.css set up by default, so that's fine. We don't need to change that, but we do need to set up our Inertia app in the app.js file. So let's open our app.js file, and it has nothing really in it at the moment other than Bootstrap. So if I just show you what I'm doing here, I'm in resources.js and app.js, and in the Bootstrap file there's a couple of things that Laravel sets up by default. One of them is Lodash, and one of them is Axios, which is what you would normally use to do these Ajax calls from the front end to the back end, but we're not going to worry too much about that. But we do need to set up this app, so I'm literally just going to copy and paste this stuff. In fact, I'll just get rid of the Bootstrap for just now because we don't need that, and just put it straight in our app file. So what we're doing here, just a quick rundown of what's happening here. We're importing Vue like you would normally. We have our create Inertia app function that is imported from the Inertia Vue package. And instead of creating a Vue app like you would do normally, we're using this create Inertia app function. And what it's doing here is it's going to load components from this pages directory, which we've still to set up. And then it's setting this up to render then the Vue app. This is the bit that you would normally have if you were creating a Vue application, and it renders the app and props in. So this is how Inertia kind of captures all that data that we've sent from the back end and creates the app in JavaScript. So let's see what else. Is there anything else we need to do here? Yeah, it wants us to add a progress indicator, which is always helpful. So we'll do that as well. And I'm just going to copy and paste some of these into this file just so they're set up. And we're not going to worry about code splitting just now. So, so as I said earlier, we need to set up this pages subdirectory to kind of contain our components. So I'm just going to create a new file. So it's under pages, and we're just going to say welcome. Let's just do a welcome component at first, and it's a Vue file. So this is going to be our first component, and we need to just populate it with some stuff. Let's just literally say hello world at the moment, good old hello world. And this is our first Vue component. So if I go back now to the web roots file where we rendered this component, all I'm going to do is change this to, now I'm not sure if it needs the pages prefix or not, but we'll double check that. So there's two things, right? So that's us kind of set up. So there's two things we need to do here. One is that we need to compile our JavaScript code. So I'm just going to run the dev task, and so oh, I didn't like that. What's it not liking? Can't resolve Vue. Oh, did I not install stuff? Oh, I'll tell you what it is. I've not actually installed Vue. Whoops. So we need Vue. Let's install that as well, and then try that again. No, it still doesn't like it. What are we missing? Oh, I'll tell you what it is. In our Webpack, we do need to change this because it's not just JS, it's Vue file, and I think actually it's just a Vue method that we can do for this. Let me see if that works. Oh, that's what it is. It's not that. So you do JS first, and then you do .vue is what you do. And it's still not working. Why? All dependencies have been installed. Please run Mix again. Okay. There we go. Right, there we go. So we got it running. It looks like I had to install some extra dependencies there. What were we missing? Vue template compiler. So if I go into my package.json, we should see these now. Yeah, Vue loader, Vue template compiler. That's fine. So so we've compiled our app.js, and I think that might actually be us. Now we're just ready to serve the page. So let's see if we can get this to work. I'm just going to run artisan serve again. And let's see if we can find out if there's an error. Yeah, we can. So can't find module pages welcome. So maybe we don't need the pages prefix in our web file. Maybe it's just the top level. That might be my mistake. There we go. Hello world. So that's it. Now we have Inertia set up, and let me just close some of these because we don't really need any of these now. And it's serving our Vue component. So remember, all we did here was we set up our app.blade.php, and then we could set up controllers, but just for speed and ease of use, I've just rendered the Inertia Vue in the roots file. And then we have our welcome component, and it's rendering hello world. And just to demonstrate the kind of power of this whole setup is, if I just, yeah, let's just do that actually, Copilot suggestion. If I just put out a title here, what will happen is this will be passed to the Vue component as a prop, and this is the real magic of Inertia, is this link between the front end and the back end without having to do all this yourself. So if I create a script tag here, and we'll have a prop, and we'll call it, what was it, title, and I'm just going to run yarn watch just in case we make any more changes to compile our script. If I do this, oh, I need to put it out in here, so let's just actually output that title as its as our prop, and then if I refresh this, we see welcome to Inertia, magic. So if I go back, I could change this again to and of course you could do all sorts of stuff here, you know, like say you fetch a user from the database, and you know, we don't have it set up at the moment, but say it's, you know, the user has a name, and we'll call it, we'll just give it my name. You know, so say this is kind of what you would fetch from the database. You know, we can do what we would normally do in here, you know, with just normal PHP data processing stuff. We could say hello and then user name, and of course in Inertia it just gets passed as a prop, so you know we can link all this stuff up really easily, and in the front end you're just treating it like Vue. So there you go, that's our Inertia application set up with Laravel and Vue. So hopefully that's helpful. This has been mostly just an introduction video, but that's partly because it's good to get kind of things set up and running, I guess, because all of my future videos hopefully on this series are going to be based on this initial app that we've set up using Inertia and Laravel. So hopefully that's been helpful, hopefully that's useful, and we're going to get into some more interesting Laravel and Inertia and Vue things next time, and we're going to start diving into all the other stuff we can do with Inertia. But hopefully that's been good, and yeah, have a good day.